some vitriol from a couple of people on Sunday here on the show about the fact that the defense is terrible and, they're worried about them, but they still have won 6 of 8 games. They're still in first place. Toronto is no barn-burning team to worry about. So all is not bad, but last week's game started to make you feel like, whoa, is this going to be another situation where they go into the playoff game at home and they just can't get it done defensively and it'll be a shootout and they'll lose? Because, boy, oh boy, that was ugly, Mo. I mean, how do you explain that after playing so well? Did they just take them lightly?
I don't know what it is. I really don't know what the issue is with them going to Southern Ontario to play the Ticats. I mean, historically speaking, the Alouettes have never fared well in Hamilton. I mean, prior to their win streak in Hamilton, in 1996, 97, 98, even 1999 into 2000, they never fared well. They never won many games in Hamilton. But let's not forget, though, there is a big loss with this. According to DDA Organizers of RDS, SJ Green is not expected in the lineup for the next 2-3 weeks, which is a huge loss for the receiving core now because, again, that puts more pressure on Jamel Richardson, Brandon London, and hopefully the Brian Bradley situation to expedite itself for him to be healthy enough for him to be back in the lineup soon enough.
So is this an opportunity now for Bo Bowling? Is that the next guy up?
It is, but it's unfortunately, Matthew, they're top heavy of talent. I mean, it's Jamel and then SJ. And then afterwards, you have Brandon London and Brian Bratton, and then there's a huge drop-off of talent of who Anthony Calvillo can trust.
But who do you think they'll go to? Will it be Bowling, or will you see more of Trent Guy in the passing game?
I think it's probably more of Trent Guy because of how hot he is. But, I mean, moving ahead here, this team has definitely suffered a lot of injuries. All 4 of their key receiving guys have suffered a serious injury at one point during the season. So their main goal right now is to make sure these guys are healthy because they will need them come playoff time. And if the scenario plays out where they're hosting the East Final, they will have most likely 2 indoor games with the Grey Cup being in Toronto at the Rogers Centre indoors.
Game points here on TSN 690. We're talking about the Montreal Alouettes, a big loss last week to Hamilton, and now the injuries are starting to mount. Mo, what didn't you like from that defense against Hamilton? Were there things specifically that they need to address there?
No, look, as I told everyone before in July and August, the defense that you'll see in October, November will be a lot different than what you saw early in the season. I think this team right now is getting comfortable with what they have to go through. They just ran into a buzzsaw team in the Ticats that have their number the last 2 years or so. And let's not forget, Hank Burris leads the league in TD passes. You have a receiving core, which is probably one of the better receiving cores in Hamilton in the CFL when they're healthy enough to be on the football field. So really, it was a buzzsaw game, a trap game, however you want to term it as. But for them, it's a loss. You move ahead. Let's not forget, 2 years ago, they got smoked in Hamilton by a big score, and they said it was the worst loss in franchise history. Well, what happened in the end? They won the Grey Cup. So for them, this might be a turning point where they say to themselves, yes, we lost to the Ticats, but we'll be focused, ready to go for the postseason in November.
Mo, is this week against Winnipeg just what they need to get back on track? I mean, obviously Winnipeg at 3-9, even though in the CFL it probably never really is over until mid-November, but is this just the kind of game they need and then they're going to be okay from there?
Well, the scheduling gods definitely gave them a great schedule where they play the Bombers 4 times this year, of course, twice in the next 5 weeks, with this game being the third matchup between the two clubs here. But if they were to take this football game, again, combined with the Toronto loss and the Ticat loss, they could be at least 4 points up on Toronto for second place, back to square one prior to last week. So this is a great time to play the Bombers. Very vulnerable right now on both sides of the football. Buck Pierce most likely won't play, so you got your backups going again for the Bombers. And with all due respect to Winnipeg, I mean, right now they're just playing out the string. With this loss to Montreal on Monday, if they were to lose, they would be out of first-place contention. So really for the Bombers, they don't have much to play for, whereas with the Alouettes, they have a lot to play for, and this is going to be a big game for them on Monday because remember, though, guys, they will be on a short week next week when they travel to Toronto next Sunday, so they have to win this game and really prepare, mentally speaking, here for the Argos in 10 days' time.
Mo, we've talked about this in the past, how Trestman is reluctant for whatever reason in late in games to use Adrian McPherson, get him some reps, rest Anthony Calvillo. If this is a game which we think where we think it'll go in the Owls' favor and be a game in which they can rack up some points and maybe put it in cruise control in the fourth quarter. Would you like to see more of Adrian McPherson here?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, you can run into that quandary of an issue of could your quarterback get hurt at some point? I mean, look at Buck Pierce. He gets hurt early in the season. Bomber season goes down the drain. You look at Drew Tate. He gets hurt in the season. Well, their season's not in the drains for the Stampeders because they have an adequate backup in Kevin Glenn. With Adrian McPherson, his body work is so short and so small of a sample that you can't really determine, is he that guy that can come in and pace the way for the Alouettes just in case if Calvillo does get hurt at some point. So for them, if they're up by 30, 40 points, whatever it is, 20 points even for that matter, I would definitely suggest or highly recommend to Mark Trestman to consider putting Adrian McPherson in there, because remember what happened 8 years ago against the Argos in the East Final. Calvillo goes down. Ted White, the backup quarterback, comes in. A deer in the headlights. Argos go on to the Grey Cup and eventually win the Grey Cup, and the Owls lose that football game. So you want you guys to be ready. Next man up mentality has to be implied with this team moving ahead.
Game points here on TSN 690. Wow, Ted White. Haven't mentioned that name in quite a while, huh? I wonder what Ted White's doing right now.
He actually tried picking up my female friend one time.
Really?
Yeah, good story.
Wow.
Very pretty lady, actually.
I thought about that for a half a second, and then I realized the end goal was to, again, promote Moe Khan. That's basically was an end-round way to once again promote Moe Khan. Well done, sir.
I remember the day like goes yesterday. Him and Dante Green. And they used to come by the sports store, as we mentioned before, in the first hour. So Ted's like, hey, how you been? And then next thing you know, the stiff arm comes on my chest. And,
nice.
Hey, who are you?
Very nice.
And the conversation, it didn't go far at all.
And then you know what happened, right? Moe Khan dusted himself off the ground because he's not telling you the full story. The full story is he stuck out the arm. Moe Khan fell over like a feather, got up, straight into sweatpants, got in the face of Ted White. Well, actually more the neck region, and said, you know what? Get away from my woman.
No, she wasn't my woman, but a friend of mine. But it was a quick conversation, and I walked out with her in the end.
So just a friend, huh?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Any kind of special friend?
No.
As listeners can't see it, I'm using quotations.
No, she's actually a former model. How about that?
Oh, look at you, huh?
Name dropping there, huh?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice, Moe Khan.
That's our role.
Now, how would a sweatpants-wearing lad meet a model?
When you have the Derek Jeter charisma, you got the Rock personality, combined as one force, it works for the best of the best.
Now, again, you didn't answer the question.
I just did.
No, not really, no.
I did.
I really don't want to let this go.
I'm a sweet guy. You know that, Matthew.
You're very nice. You're a very polite guy. You're overly polite sometimes. On air, Moe Khan likes to pretend. I've explained this to my wife every time she says, you're not very nice to Moe Khan on
I know,
air.
you're not.
You're not very nice to Moe Khan. She says that to me all the time, and I explain to him, so you don't understand. For whatever reason, Moe Khan has developed a persona on air where he thinks he's a 1980s villain wrestler. That's how Moe Khan thinks of himself on the air. He doesn't call himself, he says, I'm a broadcast journalist, blah, blah, blah. But he actually thinks of himself as a sort of, when Randy Macho Man Savage was a bad guy in wrestling, that's what Moe Khan actually thinks of himself as. He looks in the mirror and he sees the honky-tonk man. That's literally what he sees when he looks in the mirror. So don't feel bad for Moe Khan. This is the same guy that says that the Florida Marlins, the Jeffrey Loria-owned Florida Marlins, are his team. He does it on purpose.
Well, John Bowman and I, we're going back and forth right now because he's a diehard New York Yankee fan.
Okay,
and the Yankees, of course, winning early on Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
I go, boy, who's going to pitch for you in the come playoffs? David Cone or David Wells? And he's like, well, don't hate. I go, listen, I'm not hating. My team is the last ever World Series victors.
Fire sale earlier this year. Excuse me.
At the old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was entertaining. It is Moe Khan's game points coming up for the next couple of segments here as I head home, unfortunately, for an early day tomorrow. But I will be back in the flesh, in studio, 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. this coming Sunday. TSN Matthew, by the way, on Twitter.com. Up next, though, Jeff Erickson, Fantasy Football, talking it with Mo, Eric Thomas, Stefano Micella, right here in studio. Later on, a little insight into the Seattle Supersonics comeback, perhaps. We'll talk about that all next.